Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the League of Europe YouTube channel for round 14 of Season 5 of League of Europe F1. My name is Aidan Carter, otherwise known as Carmentis. I'll be taking you through proceedings as per usual on a Saturday evening, and joining me in the commentary box is someone new to Division 2. He's not new, he raced in Division 2 last season. You will remember him as XL Lando. He's commentated before as well in Division 4 last season. Up in D1 at the moment, he's now come back to commentate over the people he was racing with last season. It is Ariel Nathan. Nathan, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing good, thanks for having me. Really excited to see what the drivers have on offer. I'd rather be racing in Division 2 than Division 1, but hey, yeah, hoping for some good racing, and I'm hoping for no rain because we actually want to see some overtakes. But yeah, it's Monza, quite a well-known track actually for some rain.
Yeah, it does happen quite often, doesn't it? I mean, you just experience it in qualifying in Division 1. Rain here is very, very common. A lot of League of Europe races have taken place in the rain here as well, so that is one thing to note going into this session. That could be something really, really big. Just talking about the track, though, itself, Monza, this presents a little bit of a unique challenge, doesn't it? Only 11 corners. Despite it being one of the longest tracks in terms of actual distance, it's actually one of the shortest in terms of time because it's so flat out all the way through. This is one of the tracks where you really have to compromise on downforce for straight line speed, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. We're going to see. I think you can actually use a lot of different variations of setups. You'll see some people who will literally go out for full just straight line speed, and a few that will probably compromise their setups more for Sector 2. Obviously, with the 2 DRS zones, sorry. You obviously want to still be as close as to the car in front to try and be able to overtake, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see who's going to be the quickest on the straights and actually going to be able to probably overtake today.
Yeah, it's going to be one thing really interesting to see, as well as obviously ERS management around this track. It is very tempting to use a lot of ERS at this circuit because of the straights we have, so making sure you have that in your back pocket when you want to race is something that's going to be really, really important. We're just going to run you through quickly as well the standings as we come into the third to last round of the season. We're almost at the end already. It's been such a quick season. It's gone by so fast, and coming into round 14 of the season, Larkin is back in the lead of the championship, but only by 2 points over Matthias. Those two have been level pegging ever really since the Chinese round of the season. It's been Larkin on the up, and Matthias trying to keep up with him. Those two very, very close together. Packer, after his first non-point score, actually no, his second non-point score of the season last time out, an absolutely horrid race in the Netherlands. He's really lost touch now with the top two. He's 31 points behind Matthias. It's going to have to take a lot of bad luck for the top two and a stellar performance from Packer for him to be back in the championship fight. He's now only 20 points ahead of Noon, who picked up his second race victory of the season last time out and close to within 20 points of Packer. So a bit of a fight going on for second. Behind that, it's all to play for at the moment for fifth in the standings. It's currently held by TDB in the Alfa Romeo, who's on 79 points. He's 3 points clear of Rikurik, who's a further 2 points clear of Falk, who's only 4 points clear of Ryan. Gary, Zaldimer, Slash, Mikras, J. Cole, Assassin, Nico, Dylan, and Arcolo all within a shout of getting that fifth place in the standings. So a lot to look out for tonight, and we're going to qualifying, and it seems like we've got a dry qualifying session at least. So that is one session ticked off in terms of dry conditions instead of the wet. That is a good thing to note. And going into this round, is there anyone you've got your eye on in terms of who you think could be right at the front?
I think for Monza, just remember from last season, I know Gary actually, obviously he came down from Division 1, but he actually picked up the win here with Packer close behind. I believe he actually only picked up P4 because of penalties. So yeah, I think those two again, unless they've somehow lost a lot of pace from the end of last season, I think they'll be at the front. I think obviously you've got to look at Matthias. He's obviously been very consistent this season, and I think Larkin, obviously the championship leader, I don't think it's actually a very good track for him. So yeah, it could be another performance where he qualifies like 15th or lower, as we've seen a lot of times, and then maybe be able to just get a lucky safety car or just have a lot of straight line speed around him, just be able to get through the field.
Yeah, it's going to be one thing to note as well. Larkin's qualifying performances this season, like you say, haven't been that strong. They've been very up and down. He's either right at the front or right at the back. He's never really anywhere in between. It's a little bit of an odd season for Larkin. You wouldn't expect, I think if you tuned in at the very start of the championship, you wouldn't expect to see Larkin where he is now because he got off to such a poor start. But that run of 3 wins in a row really put him on a put him on a momentum swing really, and threw him right to the front of the championship. We're going to ride on board though with Packer, who was our early season championship leader in the Alfa Romeo, has fallen off in recent rounds, I think because he's purchased a new wheel, which is probably why he's not been at quite the same level we've seen throughout the rest of the season. But Monza is a track he adores, so we'll see what he is able to pull off. Let's ride on board then for the first lap around the Autodromo of Monza. He heads down the pit straight in the first of the 2 DRS zones at this track. Really, really high speed, touching towards 215 miles an hour before he hits the brakes just before the 100-metre board into the first chicane. He goes through turns 1 and 2. Make sure you get on the power nice and early. No wheel spin on the exit. That was really, really nice for Packer coming out of that corner. Comes through the Curva Grande then and up to the Della Roggia chicane. The second chicane, this one a little bit more difficult than the first chicane. It's a bit higher speed. The curbs do pay 2 good runs here quite easily as well. Turns in very early for the first part. Hops over the second part and does touch a wheel into the gravel. So not the best run through the Della Roggia chicane. Through the 2 Lesmos now for the Alfa Romeo driver. Keeps it nice and tight to the inside line. Doesn't use all the road on the exit. Same for the second Lesmo as well. Just doesn't want to lose the rear of the car, which is so easy to do so. Those slightly cambered corners. He then heads down the hill under the old banking of the old Monza circuit and then up towards the Ascari chicane, probably the most difficult sequence of corners on this track to get right. He has to dip out the footwell just a little bit in the second part to make sure he doesn't lose the rear of the car. Passes his teammate as he heads down this back straight and into the Parabolica for the end of his first run. Turn 11, the last corner on the lap. 5th gear corner, usually this one is in qualifying conditions. Gets the car turned in nicely. Short sifts into 6th. He's going to duck to the right hand side for the shortest run to the line, and the first time in the session from Packer crosses the line is an 18.1. It's not a bad banker for Packer, but you've got to say we're going to be seeing people dipping into the low, maybe even the mid 17s.
Yeah, very nice lap from Packer as assassin. Only goes 300s off him. We got Gary coming up to the line. This looks like a decent lap. Only an 18.2, so yeah. I think people just trying to get their eye in, as actually Alcolo goes onto a 17.9, so that's a ridiculous banker from him, as Nolan goes on an 18.8, but yeah, I think we'll see, like you said, times possibly in the mid 17s, but yeah, I think a lot of people possibly high 17s and low 18s, but yeah, very nice lap from Alcolo, just over 2 tenths ahead of Packer.
Yeah, good lap from Arcolo. Once again, this man has been so strong in qualifying. Last time out in the Netherlands was the first time he didn't qualify inside the top 5 all season. That is how good his run has been in qualifying so far. Just in Falk jump up the order into 6th place. He had such a good run of form in the early phase of the season. It just hasn't been able to replicate that in the second half. He just gets beaten by his teammate McCrass, who crosses the line in the other Haas. These two have been so evenly matched all season long, and they've remained that way in the qualifying session so far. TDB, I think, is going to be the last person to finish their first run. I think actually that is Zaldimer that's just crossed the line on an 18.7. TDB comes around the Parabolica. He'll be next to finish his run. 5th in the standings at the moment, has had a bit of an up and down season, but has had some stellar performances, especially in the wet. Crosses the line, it's only a 19.2. It's the slowest of the drivers so far, so not looking too comfortable in the session at the moment is TDB. Noon, I think, is the only one currently on a lap as well in the Ferrari. Winner last time out. He's told me not to talk about his chances this week, but I imagine he'll still be right at the front. He has been pretty much all season long. He heads up towards the end of the second sector, 52 flat. Not a bad middle sector, but not the fastest we're going to see today. Through Ascari, that Ferrari is planted through Ascari. That was absolutely lovely through there as he heads down the back straight and up towards the Parabolica. Where can he put that Ferrari? Can he replicate his performance for the Netherlands last time out? Can he try and close in on Packer for that second place in the standings? Rekurik, by the way, has gone into second place in the Renault. That's one of his better qualifyings in recent memory. Noon then up towards the line in the Ferrari, crosses the line, and it's an 18.4, goes P9 mid-pack at the moment. Not a bad banker, but just right slap bang pretty much in the middle of the pack at the moment. First run's over, and once again it's Arcolo right at the front. Rekurik, though, probably the standout after the first runs.
Yeah, good to see Rekurik. Obviously, he's had a very tough season. He got, I believe, P3 at Austria at the very start of the season. But yeah, very, very tough season for actually the championship winner of Season 4 in D2 last season. Obviously, didn't really have the pace to go up to D1, unfortunately. But yeah, with that lap anyway, he seems to have been getting a little bit of performance back. I've noticed it's very spread between this whole second between the top 15, which for D2 at least, it's been very close. I think at Zandvoort it was only like 6 tenths between like the top 15. So
yeah,
you'd think that maybe people like TDB, possibly Larking and Nolan, they might be able to pull out a bit better laps. But yeah, very surprising to see. Obviously, a massive field spread right now.
Yeah, especially at a track where, like we've said many times, there's only really 11 corners. There's not a lot of time really to be lost at this track. If you're in a good groove, you can pretty much put yourself right at the front. June crosses the line. His time was invalidated, but it would have been enough for 6th on the grid at the moment in the AlphaTauri. Another driver who's had stunning qualifying so far this season has June, just hasn't ever been able to convert it in race conditions. He actually sits as the lowest point scorer of all of the 4-time drivers at the moment, apart from Yorno. So that's how poor it's been. I think actually Yorno might have surpassed him in the previous round. So it's just not been a good season for June. The AlphaTauri is great in qualifying, hard to translate it in the race. It's what do you think these guys have got to do, is June and Arcolo, to try and better themselves in race conditions?
Honestly, I think they just need to push a little bit less. I think they're so quick in quali, and you've seen it with Assassin as well. At the start of the season, you just need to almost push a little bit less in the race and just be a bit more smooth, because it's all good and well having good quali pace, which, I mean, we've seen so many times. Arcola's been on the front row with Matthias or whoever, and yeah, they just need to push a little bit less just in the races to just keep the consistency and actually just make the checkered flag.
Yeah, that is definitely one thing they've got to do. Arcolo has picked up a win this season, but beyond that has only ever finished in the points one other time, and that was a 5th place finish at Singapore. Arcolo has DNF'd on 8 occasions this season. It's just not been a great season for Arcolo despite his raw speed. Now people are starting their second laps in qualifying. I think we have just had Hajeko jump up into 8th place in the Racing Point at the moment, just 7 thousandths clear of Falk, so it's really tight in the mid pack at the moment. We've just got a few outliers kind of lingering at the back of the field. Matthias had to dive into the pit lane. He invalidated his first run in qualifying. Packer on a lap at the moment, a 10th.5 up by the end of the second sector, but invalidates coming through with Ascari, just a little bit too much curb on the second part of that corner, so that time is not going to count for him. We'll stay on board with him. It looks like he's continuing to push, at least to maybe set a banker time and that he can try and aim for a little bit later on in the session. He rounds the final corner. He has actually turned his ERS off now, so he's going to dive into the pit lane. So second run for Packer looked fast, but wasn't quite able to keep it on the track, and that's one thing we're going to have to look out for in the race as well, because people are so on edge around this track a lot of the time. It's really easy to run wide and pick up a few warnings here.
Yeah, it's really easy because of the flat curb nature that they have around Monza. It's very tempting to just run over the curb a little bit, and then you pick up warnings, pick up penalties, pick up invalidations in quali. But yeah, I think the key today will just be to try and keep it, obviously, well, keep it on the curbs, but also keep it off the curbs, as Gary actually goes into P2 on an 18.0, so he'll be happy with that up there. I think he'll be looking for possibly a top 5 start, if not trying to be able to sneak onto pole, but at the moment no one's even within a 10th.5 of Arcolo. I think he's had such a good first lap that everyone's kind of almost chasing up to him, and I mean, yeah, he's 8 minutes left in the session and Arcolo's actually only set 1 lap.
Yeah, so far I think he made a mistake on his second run. He didn't invalidate, but he dived into the pit lane. And yeah, Gary really in the second run so far has been the only one to improve at the moment. No one's really found any time in this next run. Nolan crossed the line, but only improved by about a 10th of a second. Stays 15th for the time being. TDB's invalidated, and he was half a second up on his time, so that would have put him somewhat in the mix at the bottom end of the top 10 maybe if he'd nailed this final sector. Matt Tibos was another one that invalidated his first run in qualifying. So people finding it difficult to keep the car on the road at the moment, and like you mentioned, yeah, Arcolo is still a 10th.5 clear at the front of the field. No one getting close to him. Bukuric's on a lap, but he's already a 10th.5 down in the first sector, so he's not found anything as it stands. Macrass is on a lap, currently 7th on the grid. He's had good qualifying performances this season, and he's a 10th.5 up now on his personal best. Currently sat in 7th place. If he can find something in this last sector, could throw himself maybe onto the second row. He's got a shot maybe at second place if he can find something towards the Parabolica. We'll ride on board with him and see what he can do as he heads through the final corner. A little bit of a yellow flag in front. That's just one of the McLarens driving slowly back into the pit lane. Macrass then up towards the line. He cuts to the right hand side for the shortest run, stays to the right hand side as he comes up to the line. Macrass crosses the line and lost a little bit of time in the final sector, only improves by 1 place up into 6th, just ahead of Ryan. So a little bit of an improvement, but still Gary the only one that's been able to find any time.
Yeah, Gary the only one. As we got Recurrent coming up to the line. He's had a decent lap. I don't think he's going to really improve. No, he actually doesn't improve. Purple sector 3, but 300ths off his time. We've got a Ferrari of Zaldema coming to the line, and he's going to improve a little bit. Yeah, he goes up to 14th. But yeah, still no one able to. Actually, I've just seen Yorno's gone up to P5, so that's a really good lap from the Red Bull driver. Obviously struggled a lot with pace, but we saw in Zandvoort, I think he actually qualified in P5 and actually had a decent race. A little bit of contact with Ryan at the end, but yeah, Yorno, maybe he's just started to pick up the pace. He's obviously been struggling the whole of the season, but yeah, maybe these last 3 or 4 races have actually been quite suited for him.
Yeah, maybe I'll start to suit the driver a little bit more. Matthias, his teammate, now coming up to the line for his first run in the session, crosses the line, goes up to 7th, an 18.1, not a bad lap, but still you would expect maybe a little bit more from the second place man in the championship. Packer, once again, the highest of the people in the qualifying session of the championship rivals. Larkin down in 17th at the moment, just cannot find any time as it stands, just still stuck on an 18.9, one of the slowest in the field. Packer then on a lap, and he's at a purple middle sector, who's nearly 2/10 up on his personal best. He's kept it on the road through Ascari this time around, a little bit of a wobble on the exit of the corner, but he gets away with it. I think Assassin in front of him is Assassin behind him, actually just on a run at the moment as well. Can see what he's doing in the middle sector. Packer then up towards the final corner, heads through the Parabolica, shortens up into 6th gear very early on in the corner, so he's obviously very comfortable with the speed he's got coming out of the corner, up towards the line, and Packer goes to the top of the pile then, a 17.8, only the second driver to get into the 17s. Finally, Arcolo's been knocked off the top spot, and it's Packer that does it at the moment then. Third pole position he's looking for. He's picked up 2 poles already this season, looking for his third. That's a good lap. Meanwhile, Noon improves to P5 on an 18.1, another one into the 18.1s, and just as a Packer takes the top spot, Arcolo takes it back with a 17.7 and is once again a 10th.5 clear over the rest of the field. Whatever Packer can do, Arcolo's got an answer for it.
Yeah, I thought I was watching when we were on board with Packer. I mean, the commitment for Ascari from him was crazy. But yeah, Arcolo, another a 10th and 3/4 ahead of Packer, and I mean 3/10 ahead of P3 is ridiculous from him. As Gary's just started another lap, but yeah, I think it's going to be between these two unless someone can pull out a lap within these last 5 minutes. But yeah, I don't really know who's going to match Packer or Arcolo in this qualifying session.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like anyone's really able to get close. Falks cross the line, has gone P10. Ryan's just about to start his next run in qualifying. We've got Nolan on a run. He's just started as well. So we'll wait and see who the next person to do a lap is. I think it might be Gary, who's the furthest along a lap as it stands. He's just entered the second sector. He was only 9,000ths up on his personal best in the first part of the lap. Gary has been really talking about this race as probably one of his favourites of the season to get a win. Like you mentioned, a win here last season in Season 4. Has really had a lacklustre season by his own standards. Had a great pre-season where he finished on the podium in the Hungary race and just hasn't really been able to replicate that since. Has been on the podium, I think, only once so far this season at Russia. As he heads through the second sector then, he's now a 10th.5 up on his personal best, so it looks like he might be the next one to dip into the 1-minute 17s. Is it enough to put him on the front row? I don't think it's going to be enough to challenge Arcolo at this point in the session. He comes through the Parabolica, turns it in quite nicely, doesn't short shift up into 6th as early as we've seen other drivers do, like Packer. Up towards the line then, where can he put that McLaren? Currently 3rd on the grid, crosses the line, stays 3rd, but does go into the 1-minute 17s then. A 17.9, improves ever so slightly, just still not quite enough to get on the front row. And at the moment, the top 3 really split from the rest of the field. P4 though, down to P12, just over a 10th.5 of a second covering those 8 drivers.
Yeah, so close as we've seen all season from the mid-pack. As Dylan's actually retired out of Ascari.
Ouch.
And down in P14. I know he's been another one that has actually talked about this race a lot, actually being quite good for him. So yeah, he'll be quite disappointing to be, now 15th, as I believe that was Matt Tibos went up to P8 on another one, actually on a .1. And actually him and Matthias said the same lap, but as he's going across the chicane, but yeah, Matthias actually set his lap before him, which I don't know why he's not in front. Bit interesting, but yeah, the actual rules as we've seen in real life before would be Matthias obviously in P8, but yeah, I think Matthias, I'm expecting him to be up in the top 5, but I don't know, maybe he might just feel a bit too much pressure. Obviously, he's only 3 or 2 points behind Larkin, but with Larkin down to P18, I mean, you can kind of almost, in a way, take it a bit easier, knowing that he's going to have to at least make it through the field.
Yeah, that's one thing to note. And obviously Packer as well, after the poor round he had in the Netherlands, they've got quite a huge buffer back to Packer at the moment at 31 points in Matthias' case, 33 for Larkin. So he's over a race win behind. So at the moment they're not under any immediate threat from Packer. So yeah, maybe Matthias taking it a little bit safe. I mean, we say that, he can improve by a 10th and jump 5 places on the grid. That's how close it is in the midfield at the moment. So anything he can find could be crucial for him in this race. J. Cole was the first person to start his final run, and he's gone a half a tenth faster in the first sector so far. Could it be another one to throw himself in that ring for that battle that's currently going on for P4 on the grid? J. Cole then through the second sector. He's got a lot of traffic in front of him. I don't know if Yorno's seen him or not. Yorno sticking on the racing line. That wouldn't have affected J. Cole too much, and he's going to get a nice toe off of Larkin down the back straight anyway. I don't think it's going to be that great of that slipstream though, because Larkin, the closing speed for J. Cole there was quite enormous. He's a tenth and a half up in the second sector, so he is finding still a little bit more time. Committed again through Ascari, not using the curb in the third part, as we've seen some others do, so maybe running a little bit of a lower ride height in that racing point. Up towards the final corner then, he's got no more traffic in front of him, so it's a clean run to the line. Currently 14th on the grid. Nolan's retired. He's not made it back out onto the track in time to do another run. Neither has Matt Tibos, as J. Cole then up towards the line. Currently 14th on the grid. He puts himself P10 and another one into the 1 minute 18.1s, and 18.199 just about gets there. P10 on the grid so far, not bad. That's kind of where we've seen J. Cole a lot really this season. He's coming running in the mid-pack for quite a while so far. Everyone now starting their final runs in the session, so we've just got to keep an eye on who's doing the best run, and I'm seeing Ryan maybe pulling out a strategy here. He's running quite close to the back of Matthias, maybe trying to get a toe all the way around the lap.
Yeah, it's a bold strategy. I think it only works if you know that the car in front is, I would say, possibly like 3-4 tenths quicker than you, because otherwise you're just going to get too much dirty air. I think I'd say that's roughly about 1.5 to 2 seconds behind, so I think he's not going to be affected too much, as he messes up the chicane a little bit. But yeah, bold strategy from Ryan. As we see, I think Larkin's getting the teammate treatment off J. Cole. I think Larkin's the furthest around the lap as well. Yeah. He's actually almost half a second up going through into Ascari. As I think actually Gary missed the line, so yeah, he won't be getting another run in. But yeah, Larkin coming up to Parabolica, he was half a second up, so that would actually only put him in P15, which I think he needs a little bit more improvement. Trying to get on the power as early as possible, staying within the track limits, and keeping as tight as he can to the pit wall. And yeah, it's only P15. He didn't improve much, but
yeah, not enough of an improvement. Matthias now crosses the line, goes P4, so he found that a tenth and a half to put himself onto the second row. Packer and Drakurik both invalidated their final runs, so they're not going to get any higher than second and fifth, which is where they currently stand across the line. Falk's gone 8th, McCrass only 12th on the grid so far. Next to the line will be, I believe that's Assassin that's crossed the line, has gone P5 in the Renault, so good lap from him. Arcolo will be next to cross the line. He's dived into the pit lane though, but I don't think he even needs to complete the lap. He's got that pole position in his hand unless anyone can steal it off of him across the line. Noon now goes back into P4 on an 18 flat. It's just the McLaren of Sway who's on a lap at the moment, currently 14th on the grid. He's right in the thick of this battle and he's nearly 2 tenths up. Can he throw himself close inside that top 10 battle? He comes up towards the line, only 10th. He lost a bit of time in that final sector, and that time could have cost him a shot at maybe 6th on the grid. Qualifying then seems to be over, and it's once again Arcolo on pole position. Paco on the front row, once again a great qualifying. Gary with one of his better qualifyings of the season. Championship leader Larkin though down in 15th, once again a poor qualifying.
Yeah, Larkin, he's going to need another. Well, we saw it at Singapore. I mean, he started 20th and won the race. Obviously, there was a few lucky safety cars in his favour, but I mean, Monza, it's quite well known for safety cars. I believe in real life and also in the game, we've also seen a lot of safety cars. Yeah. But yeah, no.
Yeah, definitely anything can really happen. Arcolo then is the man on pole position by a tenth and a half over Packer on the front row. Gary third ahead of Noon. Matthias, Assassin, Rakurik, Yorno, Falk and Sway are your top 10. The top 10 covered by less than half a second. Matt Tibos right in there as well in 11th ahead of J. Cole. McCrass, Ryan, Larkins, Aldermer, Dylan who crashed out of the session. Nolan, TDB who couldn't improve on that first run. And Joom did not set a valid time at all. So it's the AlphaTauris that lead the way and bring up the rear of the field. Is there anyone you've got to say? I think we've obviously already touched on Larkin. Is there anyone else you've got to say that's out of position? I think my eye is definitely on Dylan as being one that's quite far out of position at the moment.
Yeah, I was going to say definitely Dylan. I believe he could have actually been possibly near the top 5 if he'd been able to get a good lap in from what I was seeing in some of the practices that he was doing. But yeah, Dylan, maybe Ryan, possibly. I think both the Mercedes boys actually might actually have some good pace, and luckily it's a dry race, so we'll get some good action. Obviously, could maybe be some weather later in the race, but at the moment it's looking quite dry.
Yeah, it does look very dry at the moment. It looks like we are going to get a dry race. We'll see if any weather interferes, but at the moment at least, nothing seems to be affecting them. And you would say, based on the pace we had in qualifying, that none of these guys have compromised their setup for any rain to come anyway. So looks like we could be good for the whole race. So let's talk strategies in this one. I think it's pretty obvious what the strategy is around this track. I think soft medium is definitely the fastest around here. Medium soft as well as the alternate strategy if you start outside the top 10. One thing these guys have got to be wary of though is an early safety car. If there's a safety car lap 1s, maybe through to 2 or 3, you can technically put on the hard compound tyres and you could take it to the end of the race. We saw that in Division 3, Tin Can winning in Division 3 on that exact strategy. So if there's an early safety car, might be worth people a bit further down the field taking the gamble going on the hards.
Yeah, it could definitely be worth it. I think obviously you've got to have good tyre wear for it, and also a bit of, a stroke of luck, because you can easily puncture 75%, or you can make it to 95% and not puncture. Obviously, you'll be miles off the pace, but yeah, it's just all about having a bit of luck when obviously you do that strategy. But as we can see, all of the 11th to 20th are all on mediums, so yeah, no one's going for a bold strategy. Maybe 1 or 2 could have started on softs, but yeah, everyone just going for the safe strategy of medium to soft or soft to medium. I think we'll see the soft runners anywhere from about lap 8. I think lap 7 is also possible, but the undercut isn't that powerful until you get to about lap 9, lap 10.
Yeah.
And the medium runners, obviously without a safety car, I think lap 15 could be the golden number for them. Obviously, you want to have the best tyres at the end, so maybe lap 16, 17, but you obviously want to be on the quickest tyre as quick as possible.
Yeah, you do. You want to get in there as quickly as you can, try and null the damage, really. And it's key for these medium runners to try and stick as close to the soft runners as they can at the start of this race. Before everyone lines up on the grid, though, Nathan, I'm going to ask you for your top 3 prediction. I know everyone hates answering this, but who do you think is going to take home the podium places today?
I actually think Gary is going to go back-to-back in seasons. I think he obviously won last season, and I think he can bring it home again. Obviously, he's got Packer and Arcolo in front of him, but yeah, no, I think he can bring it home. I think in P2, I'm going to go Matthias, and I think I'm going to say Packer P3, but yeah, I think it's going to be very close between him and Arcolo if Arcolo can keep it on the track.
Yeah, that's going to be one thing to note as well. Can Arcolo keep it on the road? When he kept it on the road a few rounds ago, he was able to take away the victory, so he can do it. He's just got to try and keep in that mentality and make sure he doesn't make any mistakes. Doom then and TDB round off the grid at the back of the field, so we are getting ready then for the start of the Italian Grand Prix, round 14 of the season. Who's going to get the best start down towards turn 1? Lights are out and away they go, and Gary is actually the one that's had the poor start of the top 4. He's not reacted to the lights very well, and Noon already past him. Arcolo with a stunning start, easily leading down towards turn 1. Packer tucking in behind, trying to make sure that he can block the inside line off. He gets second place. Noon in third, with Gary still side by side, but just can't quite get down the inside. And Matthias trying to capitalise on that as well. The 2 Renaults running side by side in the background. Rikurit gets ahead of Assassin coming out of the final corner. Sway has had a horrible start on the softs. He's down to 14th place already, but at the end of the first sector, Arcolo leads. Packer's running in second place. Noon with a good start up to third. Gary just didn't have the best reaction to the lights going out. Swamped by the pack, managed to hold on to 4th, which is good enough at least, but not the start he would have wanted as Sway's race continues to go from bad to worse. He's spun coming out the Della Roggia chicane.
Yeah, Sway, I believe, actually picked up, even before turn 1, he picked up a little bit of damage. Really unlucky for him. Hopefully he can get back in the pits and be able to get on his way again. But yeah, Arcolo in the lead already, 6 tenths ahead of Packer, and yeah, Noon already out of DRS of Packer. Very interesting. Obviously, you got past Gary. Gary, notorious for his mediocre starts, but yeah, hopefully he can get back on his way again and pass Noon, because yeah, Noon's not really looking the best. As Assassin and Falk side by side into Parabolica, not really a normal overtaking spot, but yeah, Assassin managing to make it work somehow.
Yeah, I think that was Falk trying to go round the outside and Assassin fending it off, but Falk derating coming off the last corner meant that he lost that place anyway. Assassin, but look at that, Falk using his ERS to try and get down the inside. He's using a lot of it very early on. Assassin into the back of his teammate. I think he just gets away with it, but Falk really being aggressive in his opening phases. He's forced onto the curb, still tyre rubbing with Assassin as they come through the Curva Grande. Got to be careful because Yorno's right there in behind as well. Matt Tibos has, I don't know if Matt Tibos has had a problem. I think it's actually just dropped down the timing pause on my screen, but as they come through the first sector, Falk down the inside this time around nearly goes straight to the back of Rikurit. Assassin has to back out the corner completely to avoid Falk. So Assassin down another place, and Yorno there to capitalise. Falk aggressive early on, but it gains him another place.
Yeah, Falk we've seen all season, very aggressive. I believe Australia, it was where him / and Noon teamed together in the race. Obviously Falk got the podium on track, but got it demoted in the stewards. But yeah, Falk already used more than half of his battery, which you don't really want to use around here. Obviously you do gain a little bit back, but yeah, you want to save as much as possible. Yeah, out in front, Packer just sitting behind Arcolo. They got about the same ERS, but I think they know that as long as Noon is in P3, I don't believe Noon is going to be quick enough to keep up with these two.
Yeah, at the moment at least, it's over a second gap. It's 1.3 seconds as Packer sets the fastest lap of the race, as you would expect, tucked in the toe of Arcolo. These two looking very, very fast at the start of this race. And the problem, like you mentioned, for Falk with that aggressive move means that he's now detached from the drivers in front. Yorno thinking about a move on Assassin into turn 1, but he's not close enough. Matt Tibos runs in 10th. Larkin, by the way, has had a brilliant start from 15th on the grid. He's up to 11th and is the second driver on the medium compound tyres. And the medium tyre runners not doing too bad of a job at the moment. Matt Tibos keeping up with Yorno in front. I think that little bout for Assassin and Falk has helped out these medium runners somewhat. Further down, Dylan thinking about a move on J. Cole coming up towards the chicane. Has a look down the inside. He's not quite close enough to think about a move on the racing point for the time being, so he stays in 15th place. The only person that pitted at the end of lap 1 was Sway. He's gone onto those hard compound tyres and replaced his front ring, as you would expect. At the front of the field, Arcolo still leads. It's half a second. You would expect Packers just sitting behind and wait, but as these guys use their DRS and pull away, Noon just can't seem to keep up. The gap already 1.7 seconds, and Gary looking like he wants to get past as soon as he can.
Yeah, Noon really struggling. He's actually lost 4 attempts on this lap alone to the top 2, which I think Gary and behind, obviously he's only 3 attempts behind, he's used a lot more ERS actually, which he doesn't really want to use that much, because even if he gets past, I mean, Noon then can just stick in behind or even carry on trying to overtake him. As Packer, I do wonder if he might try and move into turn 1, but at the same time I have a feeling that he is just going to sit behind, getting a little bit close. No, yeah, he's just going to sit behind, and Gary does go past Noon into P3, and I think Gary will probably actually try and burn the rest of his ERS to get back in the DRS, because he doesn't want the top 2 to get away, because we know how quick Arcolo is, and he can just drag Packer along. Or likewise, if Packer does go past Arcolo, Packer does have the pace probably over Gary a little bit.
Yeah, you've got to say that Gary is going to have to try and close in as quickly as he can, drag the rest of the queue with him, but 1.6 seconds, that is a big gap to try and make up around a track like this as well, so that's going to be difficult. Matthias makes a bit of a mistake at the De La Rocha chicane, and that allows Rekurik up into 5th, so Matthias not feeling too comfortable at the moment. He didn't find any places at the start of the race. Now it's just been overtaken by Rekurik, but Rekurik losing DRS to Noon in front as a result of that overtake. Matthias on his ERS, trying to think about a move coming back at the Renault, but turns his ERS off into Ascari, decides not to go for the move, it seems. Sits in 6th place for the time being. Falk set the fastest lap of the race on that previous lap. He's absolutely flying. He's a little bit all over the place, as we just saw there through Ascari, but he is flying up to the back of these two, and now Rekurik seems to be a little bit detached from the drivers in front. TDB, the first driver to pick up a time penalty coming out of Ascari, and we'll see a lot more of those as the race goes on. TDB has already passed the likes of Zaldama and Nolan, and he's straight onto the back of Dylan as well. So while qualifying didn't go too well for TDB, TDB at least at the moment looks like he's pretty fast on those mediums at the back of the field. He's just got to try and hope that drivers around him also pick up penalties, as Matthias back up into 5th place, passes Rekurik. He's up into that 5th, and crucially further in front, Gary hasn't gained any time on Packer in front.
No, Gary's struggling a little bit. He's using his ERS already, but yeah, he's got 50% less than Noon. Yeah, Gary, I have a feeling Arcolo and Packer are actually just going to run away with this, unless there's any major battling between the two.
Oh, as Arcolo makes sorry to jump in there. Arcolo makes a bit of a mistake coming out the De La Rocha chicane, and Packer having a look down the inside of the first. Lesbo can't pull it off, but this is a great opening now for Gary, as Arcolo struggling a little bit maybe with the rear tyres, and Packer looking for a way through.
Yeah, if I was Gary, I would be straight onto his ERS, which he's not. He's just kind of sitting there, but yeah, Packer possibly could. I think if I was Packer, I actually might try and just pressure Arcolo, go past and see if he can actually keep up, because Packer seems the more confident out of the two of them. Arcolo seems very kind of squirrely on the exit of the corners. So yeah, maybe he's got a really low downforce setup and just trying to keep cars behind him with his straight line speed.
Yeah, maybe that is what he's trying to do, like you say, but yeah, I fully agree with you. Packer does look the faster of the two, and I think this time around, he might be going for the move. Arcolo moves to the right-hand side, but Packer, with more straight-line speed, going to go round the outside towards turn one on the race line, and Packer then takes the lead of the race. Arcolo down into second. Now can Packer and Arcolo start to pull away once again? Gary has crucially got within that 1 second, but as soon as I say that, Arcolo hops over the curb quite heavily at turn two, and has already dropped to 9/10 back behind Packer, so it looks like Arcolo really struggling with his rear tyres already. We've got someone off at the back of the field. That is TDB, who's gone straight through the first chicane for some reason, and has picked up another penalty because of it. Don't know if there was any contact or whether he was outbroken himself, but TDB talking him up at the start of the race, and now it's all kind of falling apart for him.
Yeah, really unfortunate for TDB. He did outbrake himself into turn one, and yeah, I think he's going to be struggling for the rest of the race. But yeah, back at the front, I think Arcolo. I mean, he's already out of DRS. He does have it down this straight, obviously. But yeah, I think if Packer can carry on this form, I think he could actually break DRS actually quite easily. Oh, Arcolo has a big moment, and that could allow Gary to get through. Yeah, Arcolo goes wide again. Yeah, Arcolo really struggling on his softs. I do wonder, like, you can overheat a little bit on the softs. So I do wonder if maybe he's just overheat them a little bit. But yeah, Arcolo really struggling. And I mean, Packer's now 2 seconds ahead of the field already.
Yeah, that has worked perfectly for Packer now. It's all about whether Gary can close in on Packer, but Packer has looked the faster of the drivers, and that just proves it. A 21.6 on that lap, a great lap for the Alfa Romeo driver. Now, is Arcolo going to think about a move back at Gary? Gary's already D-rating, so he's really going to struggle with straight line speed. Arcolo thought about it, but decided against doing it. I think he's just going to sit behind the McLaren now, and I hope that he can maybe close back in on Packer, but it's all starting to Constantina up a bit. Further down the field, Larkin has got past Matt Tibos, and is now the lead medium runner. So once again, in the race conditions at least, Larkin looks a lot more confident than he did in qualifying. So looking good at the moment. He sits 3 seconds behind the queue of soft runners, but that's not really that big of a margin. You would expect it maybe in some other circumstances to be closer to the 5 or 6 second mark. So Larkin doing a pretty good job at this point in the race. He leads those on the alternate strategy. He's just got to hope now that the likes of Gary and Arcolo at the front of the queue starts to slow the rest of the soft runners up, which at the moment seems like he's doing that.
Yeah, Gary's lost about 2 tenths in this lap to Packer, but I think Packer, I think as long as he can just keep it on the road and doesn't make any silly mistakes, I think he actually could just run away with it. But yeah, Larkin right now just almost needs from second to ninth to just start battling, really. Obviously, it's only 3 seconds, which when Larkin puts on the softs, I mean, he'll be 8-9 tenths quicker a lap over all the guys that will pit onto medium. So yeah, Larkin's not out of it. I'd expect right now, without anything happening, he'd be on for like a P6, maybe even a P5 if he can get through the traffic actually quite easily. But yeah, as Doom goes past Nolan, possibly Nolan might have just let him through, but yeah, Nolan's actually going to go straight back past him. But yeah, Doom using ERS as well. Obviously, Nolan's going to get DRS, but Doom gets DRS as well. And yeah, I think Doom's just going to keep ahead of him unless Nolan dives it. He is actually going to dive it down the inside. Oof. Does he get the corner stopped? He just does. And yeah, covers the apex off nicely. So yeah, that was nice for Nolan. Obviously, only for 17th. Nolan had a bit of a rough season. Obviously, he's had a good result at Bahrain. Obviously, got a P4. But yeah, Nolan just, I think someone that he kind of needs to get into a race. I think the first sort of few laps, as Arcolo picks a penalty, Nolan's one that is always quite twitchy. And I think he just kind of needs to almost kind of just grain himself into the race.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think it's kind of similar to Arcolo in the sense that I think Nolan pushes almost every second of every lap trying to get the most out of it, and sometimes that just isn't the way to go about a race. But at the moment, in 17th, and he's still right in the queue of all the medium runners. All the medium runners are within DRS range of one another at the moment, so they're all running fairly similar pace. Larkin hasn't been able to close in on this previous lap, and Gary has taken a couple of tenths out of Packer on that previous lap, but it's not enough to put him anywhere near the back of the Alfa Romeo, who sets a 20, and Gary's actually in. Gary into the pit lane then. He's the first of our leaders in. Noon follows him in as well, so clearly Gary trying to go for an undercut to get him back inside DRS range of Packer, but you've got to say, Packer could just now use a little bit of that extra CRS he had to maybe try and pull an overcut and pull a bit further away.
Yeah, Packer, I think we'll see Packer on this lap. I'd be surprised if he goes onto lap 10, but yeah, obviously, Packer's down to 40% ERS. Gary, actually, it will help him a lot. Obviously, he was D-rating for quite a while. He managed to save a little bit of ERS, but yeah, Gary will probably use, he's got, 50 into the first chicane? So yeah, I expect at the end of this lap, we'll probably see him at about 20. As Doom and Nolan are battling again. I think Nolan, just sticking behind Doom, but yeah, Nuno actually, he had 100% out of the pit box. So yeah, he could be trying to almost get a little bit of pace back. But yeah, Noon, I think maybe is just a bit out of it compared to the likes of like Packer and Arcolo.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem to quite have the same raw speed. Anything could happen, and penalties could come into play as well, but at the moment, Noon just not quite fast enough further up the field as well. Yorno was thinking about a move on Assassin into the first Lesmo, but couldn't quite get the move done, so he stays in 7th for the time being. This is definitely more of the Yorno we saw last season in Division 3. Obviously, Division 3 champion. Absolutely brilliant championship fit. Who was for him? Beat J. Cole to the title, and J. Cole has, you've got to say, pretty much outclassed our Yorno so far this season. So this is much more of the Yorno we've seen from old. Pretty much every one of the soft runners are in, apart from Assassin and Yorno, obviously because their teammates were in front of them, so they've got to stay out for another lap. But staying out for another lap around here isn't too much of a detriment. There's not really a lot of pace drop off in these softs, as Matt Tibos meanwhile gets back past Larkin and into 3rd place. So the medium runners actually starting to fight with each other instead of the soft runners, so they're just going to start to lose more time. Out of the pit lane, by the way, Packer still leads this race as he comes out the pits, but Gary uses the DRS on that lap and is now back within DRS range.
Yeah, Gary, like we thought, completely, but he was derating down the pit straight, but I think he's just within a second of Packer. Obviously Packer, I mean, if I was him, I'd be trying to use his ERS to just get Gary out of the DRS again, because I think Packer just does have the pace over everyone. But yeah, Gary just within the DRS range of Packer, so it'll be interesting to see if Packer can actually pull away from Gary. Obviously Arcolo holding up the Noon and Matthias train. I think Matthias will probably, obviously he's got a lot more ERS, but he'll be just sat here trying to... I think Matthias really is on for P3. I don't know if he's going to be able to get to the likes of Gary and Packer. Obviously with them in a DRS train now, and unless Arcolo can find some pace and catch back up, I think, yeah, Matthias almost kind of needs to just settle for P3 in this race and just kind of extend the championship lead on Larkin if he can. Oh, it's actually, I've just seen Jooms just crash out of Parabolica.
Oh dear, so the Alpha, I don't know if that was contact or anything, but he's broken his front wing and is into the pits.
Yeah, luckily no safety car, and obviously he didn't retire. Hopefully he doesn't retire in the pit lane. I don't think he will. As actually... No, I thought I saw some of the medium runners in the pits, but it was just the other 2 soft runners.
Yeah. Yeah,
but
so
yeah,
that
no,
is...
Gary... Go on.
I was going to say, yeah, that's Assassin that's come into the pits with Yorno. They've come back out. Assassin back behind Falk, but he was behind Falk anyway, so staying out a lap longer hasn't really hurt him whatsoever, as Ryan is the next person to pick up a time penalty.
Yeah, I've just seen Noon's got a little bit closer to Arcolo. Obviously, Noon struggled in the first stint, but I think, like we were saying with Nolan, I think he's just slowly coming into the race, and yeah, maybe he's just thinking he can get past Arcolo and possibly gap him a little bit. Arcolo again struggling in the race. He's got a little bit more ERS than Noon, but I think all of these quite close together, and yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they do. I think obviously they've got Rick and Falk and Assassin, and actually all of these in a DRS train now from 18th to 12th. It'll be interesting what they do, and especially when the medium runners decide to pit in the next 4 or 5 laps to see if they can actually make their way through this train.
Yeah, at the moment it's just not working out at the moment for Arcolo, is it? Once again, the race pace just isn't quite there for him. He's now nearly 2.5 seconds behind Gary. Gary doing his absolute best to try and keep up with Packer, but he's right on the bubble. The DRS at the moment, 8.5 tenths behind. Fastest lap of the race for Falk at the back of that queue as Rikurik thinking about a move on Matthias maybe in towards turn 1. Matthias re-jumped Rikurik in the... Obviously these had a bit of a battle earlier on. Rikurik really late on the brakes down the inside, but Matthias holds it around the outside of turn 1 and stays in 14th place. Rikurik though trying to find a way through. This is one of the better performances we've seen from Rikurik since those 3 podiums at the start of the season. Just hasn't had a good run since, hasn't been able to score more than 6 points in a race since the 3rd round of the season. This is looking like a much better opportunity for him, but just have a time penalty looming over his head. Packer just now started to close in on the back of his teammate TDB and Nolan, who run a little bit detached from the rest of the medium runners after that spin for Doom. So when Packer gets to the back of these guys, you would imagine that TDB is not really going to hold his teammate up.
No, TDB I think will let him straight through. I know for a fact Nolan will not let him straight through and will fight him as hard as he can after their incidents at Spain. But yeah, possibly. I don't know if they will catch the back of him. Obviously, it's 2.8 coming into the final corner, but it depends when they pit. If they pit on lap 15 or 16, they might just get within DRS range, but it's going to be close to see if Packer does catch them. And actually, it could almost help Gary in a way if they do catch them, because Packer will obviously get past TDB, but if Nolan decides to fight him, yeah, I don't know what will happen.
Yeah, don't know what will happen, and could that bring the likes of Arcolo and Noon back into it? Noon thinking about a move on Arcolo, but just there, you could definitely see that Arcolo's got a very fast car in a straight line. I think your theory of earlier on of him maybe running a little bit lower wings, and that's costing him through Ascari. In the DRS there, Noon wasn't really getting anything at all on the AlphaTauri in front, so that does suggest that Arcolo has got a very fast car in a straight line. That will help him defend that place for the time being, but they just continue to lose touch with the drivers in front. Yet again, Yorno thinking about a move down the inside of the first Lesmo on Assassin, but can't quite get the move done. Yorno looking pretty racy at the moment at the back of this queue. It seems to have the pace over some of the drivers in front, but being at the back of the queue is really difficult, and he has a massive moment coming out of the second Lesmo, gets away with it, but just goes to show how on edge a lot of these drivers are. By the way, Matt Tibos still leads the way of those people on the alternate strategy. All the drivers on the alternate strategy, apart from Nolan and TDB, are all in a queue from Tibos, Larkin, McCrass, Ryan, Dillon, Jaco and Zaldimer. It's all about when these drivers decide to pit. It's really a case of, do these guys risk coming in at the end of this lap, or do you think the end of 15 is the better option?
Yeah, definitely is. Packer is actually, he gained 1.6 seconds on the last lap on TDB and Nolan.
Wow.
Obviously, TDB, I think, is actually being held up a little bit by Nolan because of their ERS levels, but yeah, TDB's not really trying to force a move on Nolan at the moment. I think these two kind of just... I think these two are almost just hoping for a safety car, because I think they probably don't have the pace over the rest of the field, so yeah, they're kind of just sitting back, just waiting for incidents to happen, which I think with 13 laps to go, I think there will be some incidents that will probably happen, but yeah, Packer just is going to be within DRS range, so that will help him a little bit to gain some ERS back on Gary. But yeah, these two at the moment, I think, running away with it, as we saw last season as well. It's the same two people, and I think Arcolo just not really got the pace to keep up, especially with them both in DRS.
Yeah, I mean, we say that though, on this previous lap, Arcolo has gained half a second back as TDB has let his teammate through, and crucially TDB's not let Gary through, and was really slow through Ascari. That has really held Gary up, and that's going to put Gary out of DRS range to the Alfa Romeo, the Alfa Romeo in front, as I think Yorno spun off at the back of this queue as well, coming through Ascari, and has broken his front wing, so a really good race going for Yorno, and yet again it's gone wrong for him. That's a broken front wing. He'll definitely have to come in with that amount of damage. Zaldimer is the first of our leading group into the pit lane. Nolan follows him in as well, so Zaldimer's the one playing it aggressive. He was the one at the back of the queue looking to gain a few places on those that are still racing out there. Packer really benefited from catching TDB because Gary's still having to fight the Alfa Romeo in towards turn 1, and that's given Packer the opportunity to break away again, and it's on 1.7 seconds, so that's worked beautifully for Packer.
Yeah, TDB, I mean, from Ascari to the second corner, really holding up Gary. 2 seconds it is now between them two, so yeah, that's really not going to help Gary. And he has no ERS because he had to burn it all to just get past TDB. So yeah, TDB almost, in a way, throwing his race to help Packer and hopefully help Packer towards a win. But yeah, TDB really not helping the McLaren driver. In behind, just everyone keeping within a train, obviously. Arcolo and Ricuric, I think they're gonna almost wanted to pick up the pace a little bit. I've actually seen Zaldimer's 12 seconds off the back of these guys, so it's gonna be interesting to see actually how much they do catch up, because I think Zaldimer, correct me if I'm wrong, was at the back of the medium train, was he?
Yeah, he was.
So yeah, and obviously they were all within DRS of each other, so when the likes of Matt Tibos and Larkin pit, it'll be interesting to see how far behind they come out. I believe it'll be maybe 10 seconds, which with 11 or 10 laps left, they're going to have to gain about a second a lap, maybe even more, to even have a chance of get through.
Yeah, they've got to really up the pace at the moment, haven't they? As Ryan and Jaco are the next ones to come into the pit lane. So Ryan was in the middle of that queue. So now can Ryan use this lap to try and undercut some of the drivers in front? In fact, Zaldimer really pressuring Ryan here down towards the first corner. Ryan under pressure from the Ferrari. Who's going to be late enough on the brakes? Ryan's got the inside line, but Zaldimer with better tyre temperature just drives clean around the outside. There's a bit of contact between the two, but Zaldimer up into 13th place with that one lap undercut. He's gained a net probably 4 or 5 places in that queue. Ryan's trying to fight back down the inside of the Curva Grande. It'll be the outside for the De La Roggia chicane. Is Ryan brave enough on the brakes to make the move stick on the Ferrari? Really late on the brakes. Ryan around the outside. Zaldimer trying to hold it there, and he does so. Zaldimer just holds on to it. A little bit of wheel contact coming out of the corner, but Zaldimer holds on to that 13th place. You've got to say, though, Ryan may be looking the faster of the two, and J. Cole sitting ready to pounce if anything happens. That little battle, though, has cost Zaldimer time to Assassin in front. They've actually lost a second on that previous lap. So while they're battling and while they're trying to make themselves the lead of this soft queue, they're losing time to the medium runners in front.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of respect shown from them. Obviously, either one of them could just turned in on the other one, and that would have been their race over. But yeah, really not helping. I believe they lost half a second to a second, as most of the medium runners pit. Actually, no, they all do pit. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see where they come out. I believe Matt Tibos should still lead, as no, Larkin's actually jumped him. Larkin's jumped him in the pit lane. And yeah, Zaldimer's just coming around the final corner, so this is going to be very close actually. Zaldimer's going to gain a few positions here. He's past Dylan, he's going to be past Mick Crass. I don't believe he's going to get past Matt Tibos, so yeah.
Ryan as well, with coming trying to get a move done on Zaldimer, had to duck right to the inside of McCrass, who was coming out of the pit lane to try and avoid the Haas car. So Ryan trying to get the move done on Zaldimer coming through the Curva Grande once again. This time around, Ryan seems to have it, but he's run out of ERS, making the move stick. You all know the fastest man on the track. Here comes J. Cole with extra ERS around the outside of the Curva Grande, trying to get past Ryan into De La Roggia, but isn't quite able to get the move done. Dylan makes a little bit of a mistake, and McCrass now challenging the Mercedes driver through the chicane. McCrass gets around the outside of the first Lesmo and up into 15th place. So all shuffled around really in that part of the lap, as TDB's made a mistake in the De La Roggia chicane and has spun around. Arcolo with another penalty in 3rd place. Larkin leads the soft queue, but he's 10 seconds off the back of Assassin. He's got to have some really lightning speed if he wants anything else but 9th place in this race. Yeah,
these guys have really, I mean, well, they've got to catch a second, maybe even a second and a half a lap just to even have a chance, because it's all good and well catching the train, but if they catch him with like 3 laps left, there's no way they're going to get through, because their softs are going to be at equal pace, as there's actually a VSC because TDB's crashed for Ascari.
Well, so our first retiree from the race and the first proper spinner at Ascari is TDB. Was having a horrid race up to that point anyway, but he's crashed out of the race unfortunately, so that's no points for the Alfa Romeo driver. That allows Sway and Giorno to gain up another place in this race. Virtual safety car, I think the medium runners will be very happy that it's just a virtual safety car and not a full one, because that at least keeps the gap between the drivers. Just got to make sure that none of these drivers speed behind the virtual safety car. Packer leads, DRS is enabled, so we are back underway. It looks like everyone got through it nice and cleanly. Packer leads, still 1.7 seconds is the gap, so Packer keeping it steady at the moment. That VSC has allowed Gary to gain a little bit more ERS back, but Gary at the moment just doesn't have the raw speed to close back in on the Alfa Romeo.
Yeah, Gary just kind of sitting, obviously, Packer with about 37% more ERS, so even if Gary does start to make a charge, I think Packer might actually have this, unless he does make a mistake or if Gary can find some pace. I was watching, Larkin gained 3 seconds on Assassin under that VSC.
Wow.
And he's still gaining a lot. So yeah, these guys could actually just be in it. As I've seen, Noon just fell out of DRS, and I don't know, he hasn't got it for this straight either. So yeah, Noon may be struggling a little bit. He is using some of his DRS to try and catch back up, but yeah, possibly a 3-horse race for the podium now.
Yeah, definitely looks like it. Obviously, this battle between Noon and Matthias is going to be the one for 3rd at the moment with Arcolo's penalties. Falcon Assassin are somewhat in it, but they've got Rekurik in the way. As further down, J. Cole with extra ERS is able to breeze past Ryan. They're going to go 3 wide as Alderman's trying to come back at these guys, and McCrass in the battle as well. McCrass around the outside of turn 1, makes the inside of turn 2, and Zaldimer just really struggling. It was great for him to pit early, but it's just not worked out. It just doesn't have the pace of the rest of the soft runners. McCrass around the outside of Curva Grande trying to squeeze Zaldimer, who's going to end up getting boxed in here behind Ryan as they go into the corner. McCrass later on the brakes. Zaldimer trying to hold it around the outside, but just doesn't have the grip to do so. So Zaldimer down to 14th place. But as all of these soft runners start to battle with one another, J. Cole, having been in the queue, is now 5 seconds behind Larkin and Tibos, and Packer, our race leader, has just picked up a time penalty. Now there is the mistake that Gary was looking for.
Yeah, very costly. I'm just going to have a look. Gary does actually have 2 warnings himself, so it could come down to penalties. But yeah, if Gary can keep it on the track for another, what would that be, 8 laps, and if you can actually keep it within also 1.3 seconds more, It's going to be so close between these two, but yeah, Packer maybe, yeah, Alcolo's coming at him, and I think he should get the move done. Gary just lets him through, and yeah, Alcolo, almost in a way, could actually have just saved Packer possibly the race win, because Gary's now 2.2, he was 1.8, so yeah, Alcolo, in a way, unless Alcolo starts to catch Packer, Alcolo could be the person that actually gives Packer the win.
Yeah, that is definitely the case. We've got to see if Alcolo has the pace to close in on Packer. If he does, he can try and drag Gary with him. But this is the first time in a few laps now that Gary's going to be running in some dirty air, so that might affect the way he's driving. And look at the gap just tumbling down now to 2.8 seconds.
Pace, does it?
Yeah, just not quite able to keep up. As soon as he drops into dirty air, the pace just comes to seem to fall away for Gary. He just doesn't seem to be able to have the pace to keep close to drivers in front at the moment. It's just not working for the McLaren driver. Further down the field, by the way, I think that was another move. I think Dylan got past McCrass and Zaldimer, so Dylan up into 13th place and now right behind Ryan for 12th. Larkin closing in on the medium runners in front is 6.3 seconds, but in the last few laps the gap just keeps the amount that they're gaining just keeps dropping and dropping. It's not enough at this point, and you've got to say, it honestly looks like that Tibos might be the faster of the two.
Yeah, they're really not catching enough as Nolan picks up penalty as well. One thing I haven't been noticing is Rikurik, especially through Sector 2, is all over the back of Matthias. I know he's got a penalty, which is really unfortunate, but yeah, Rikurik, I don't know where this pace has come from, but it's really almost sad to see that it's just coming just a bit too late, obviously, with his 3 podiums at the start of the season. I mean, what could have been if he'd had this pace for the whole season? Obviously, he's missed, I think, a couple of races as well, but yeah, Rikurik maybe just finding some form of the area of the season, as I believe that's Doom that is spun. Don't think that should be a safety car. No, he's managed to keep the car running. But yeah, no, but up in front, yeah, Gary, he's only got a 2-tenth window. I think Alcolo maybe could just win Packer this race.
Definitely could have, yeah. Now Packer's just got to try and keep it on the road for the rest of this one. But yeah, like I mentioned, as soon as Gary drops behind another car, he then immediately loses like 7 or 8 tenths of the car in front, and then he's able to keep up. It just seems that when he's in close proximity to the car in front, he just doesn't seem to have any confidence. So just not able to follow Alcolo closely enough. Alcolo derating all the time as well. So is Gary. They've just not got any ERS left. Gary using all his ERS to try and keep up with Packer has meant that now that he's been overtaken by Alcolo, he doesn't have anything to fight back with. Noon in 4th has more ERS than the drivers in front if he wants to pounce, and Noon could be staring at a 2nd place finish here if he can get past Gary. But at the moment, being in a DRS train enough. One person who doesn't think that it's difficult to pass in a DRS train is Falk. He's having a look at the back of Rikurik down the pit straight. He might have a look for a move. He's not going to be close enough in towards turn 1 unless he's damn dear on the brakes, which he isn't. Rikurik fends off the line anyway just in case, and actually bumps over the curb a little bit too harshly in turn 1. Gets away with it though, gets a nice exit out of turn 2. But Falk looking like he wants to try and gain a few more places. He wants to try and battle Matthias and Noon for a better position in this race. Further down the field, Dylan's past Ryan, and now Ryan under pressure from McCrass behind. The soft runners all battling with one another, not gaining anything on the medium runners in front. And you've got to say, Larkin and Matt Tibos not gaining enough at this point in the race.
No, I think obviously they've got the gap behind. I think it's just going to be a case of which one of them. I think Matt Tibos could actually just stick behind him until maybe the last 2 laps and then have a full attack at Larkin. Obviously, Larkin, it's almost damage limitation. I was just having a mental workout, and Larkin would be on 172 points after this race compared to Matthias, who'd go on to 176. Oh, as he almost loses it for Ascari as I say that. Yeah, he'd be 4 points ahead of Larkin, and Packer would actually bring himself only 16 points off the lead. So yeah, it'd be a great race for Packer as Dylan now picks up a penalty. But yeah, it'd be a good race for Packer with only 2 races left. Only 16 points behind. I mean, yeah, I think it'd be a lot of work to do for Packer, but I think you'd be a lot more happier than almost losing out even a shot at it.
Yeah, definitely. He's at least driving himself back into contention at the moment in case anything happens in the next few rounds. We'll wait and see. But yeah, doing a brilliant job so far in this race. Has Packer. The only problem is that penalty. But Gary is just about to dip outside of the penalty range. He's at just under a 10th away from dipping outside of it. Is right on the limit at the moment. Just doesn't have the pace to keep up with Alcolo. And likewise, Alcolo can't close in on Packer in front. We've got 4.5 laps to go in this race. Not long left. And at the moment, it seems like Packer might have this one in the bag. It's right on the limit, and June, by the way, has spun once again coming out of Ascari, so I think those soft tyres are officially done for on that AlphaTauri. They seem cooked at this point in the race. Further down the field, Larkin now 4.9 behind Assassin. He's closing in. He might be able to capitalise on some people's penalties, maybe Rikurik and Arcolo, if he can get close enough to those drivers. But 7th place seems like the best he can get out of this race at the moment. Matt Tibos likely at best he can get is 7th if he can get past Larkin as well. They're now 5 seconds clear of J. Cole, who leads the rest of the soft runners, who, you've got to say, battled so much at the start of this race that it cost them at the end.
Yeah, definitely, as Ryan just picked up a penalty as well. Yeah, I think I was just working out. I think Larkin, he needs to gain another 1.9 to be able to capitalise on Rikurik, but it's going to be close. I think obviously their soft tyres will be dying out. They haven't been gaining enough on these last few laps.
Here comes Matt Tibos as well. Yeah, Matt Tibos down the inside of Larkin. Larkin derating down the pit straight. Matt Tibos with more ERS. He looked like the fastest of the soft runners, and he's back up into 9th place.
Yeah, good move from Matt Tibos, obviously. I think he does look a little bit quicker, obviously, with a lot more ERS than Larkin at the moment, but I don't know if they'll be able to capitalise on Rikurik. So yeah, 9th and 10th might just be where they finish up, as I think Noon is just starting to put Gary under a little bit of pressure. Gary was almost out of Arcolo's DRS, and he's just within it, but Gary may be starting to struggle. Obviously, he pitted a lap earlier than Arcolo. And yeah, Noon maybe just starting to put a bit of pressure on. Obviously, this is for P2, so it's going to be close. As Matthias picks up a penalty now, so that's going to hurt him as well. He will drop behind Falcon Assassin. So yeah, Packer more and more actually is bringing himself back into the championship. Obviously, the gap between him and Gary is literally going to be 1/10, maybe even less, as it stands. So yeah, Gary is literally fighting just to keep 1/10 within, to pick up the win.
Yeah, he's doing everything he can at the moment. He's closing a little bit more on Arcolo on this lap, which could help him. The more slipstream he gets, it's down to about 2.6 seconds at the moment, the gap between Gary and Packer. But again, Gary then locking up into turn 1, losing a lot of the time he gained. Noon just in behind Matthias with that penalty. Like you said, that's going to drop him behind Falcon Assassin. But Falk starting to lose touch with the Rikurik in front a little bit now. So that means that could put Assassin and Falk too far behind. Further down the field, Ryan continues to have many battles. He's down in 13th at the moment. McCrass trying to get a move done for 13th place, can't quite find a way through. Zadamer's right there as well, and these guys are actually being caught by Nolan, who's looked better on the soft compound tyres than he did on the mediums a little bit earlier on. Matt Tibos, having passed Larkin, only gained about 0.4 of a second on Sasson on that previous lap, so by far not enough to close in on the rest of the drivers in front. It's just not working out for those that started on the alternate strategy. They've just not had the pace in this race. 2 laps to go when we cross the line. It's right within the bubble. Do you think Packer can hold on, or do you think Gary's got enough to win this?
I genuinely think the only way Gary wins this is if he gets past Arcolo. He is struggling so much behind Arcolo, and like you said, as soon as Gary gets behind another car, it can't get close. I think maybe his setup might be like we've seen with the real life Mercedes, where it's just built to just be in the lead. Obviously, Gary knows he's got the pace around here to be leading, so yeah, maybe he literally just, as Noon is all over the back of him, he's not going to have a go at him. But yeah, Gary, I think, needs to get past Arcolo. Otherwise, I don't believe he will win the race.
Yeah, and then the other problem behind that as well is that Noon is right there ready to pounce if Gary makes a mistake or tries to go past Arcolo and doesn't make the move stick. Noon tucked right up behind with a little bit more ERS in his back pocket as well. Matthias and Rikurik no longer really a factor in this race with the penalties they've got. Matthias just hoping to hold on to maybe, I think it's going to be a 7th post finish as it stands, which compared to Larkin's 10th, that is not the race that Matthias would have wanted considering where Larkin started. It's not been the best of races for Matthias. He's had decent pace, but he's not had the pace to really step out the mark of being in the middle of this queue. He's just been stuck in the middle of the queue ever since the start, and even the pit stops, a little bit of an earlier pit stop for Matthias hasn't worked. It's just kind of been sat in that 5th place this entire race. The gap seems to come down in the middle part of the lap. That seems to be where Packer has a bit more pace, and then by the time we get has a bit more pace, and then by the time we get around to the first sector, that's where Packer starts to gain some of it back. Problem now though is that Packer is now starting to derate. He's used up all of his ERS trying to pull away, and that could put him on the back foot.
Yeah, Packer, I think, may have just used his goods too much as yellow flag. I think that's Doom. So yeah, 2 tenths is going to be, 3 tenths between Gary and Packer with 2 sectors to go, but yeah, Gary just needs to stick to the back of Arcolo as tight as possible. Obviously, he's going to get DRS out of Lesmo too, but I mean, yeah, it's a 10th as Matt Tibos and Larkin are battling, or Matt Tibos just stays ahead of Larkin. That fight is going to go on till the end, but I mean, Noon could still win this possibly if he gets past Gary, or even Noon could actually still get P2, but it's going to be so close between Gary and Packer.
Yeah, we've got the leader interval up at the moment. It's 2.7 seconds between Packer and Gary. Gary, at the moment, has this one in the bag. Gary looking for his first win of the season. It's not been a good season for Gary. Looking for his second victory at Monza in 2 seasons. Packer used up his ERS trying to pull away. That might have been the mistake. That might have been a big mistake to use up his ERS before the last lap, because he's not got the straight line speed anymore that he had over Gary. Gary using his ERS down towards the Parabolica. It's going to take a mega final corner for Packer, and a bit of a mistake from Gary for Gary to lose this now. We come into the final corner. Packer, so many times this season, has won on track and lost it on penalties. He comes up towards the line. It's going to happen again. Packer crosses the line and wins the race, but Gary has finally won a race in Division 2 this season. He wins at Monza, and I think for the 4th time this season, Packer loses the win on a penalty, gets second place by 3 tenths of a second. He barely holds second. The top 3 covered by 5 tenths in the end. Noon does get on the podium ahead of Falcon 4th and Assassin 5th. Matthias drops to 6th with that penalty in the end. Matt Tibos was able to just fend off Larkin for 9th place. So in the end, Packer, you've got to say, maybe using up his ERS too early meant that Gary just had enough in hand to hold on to it.
Yeah, Packer, I think, just used it a little bit too early. I think if he'd spread it out a little bit more, I think he could have possibly just got the gap. Obviously, it was only 3 tenths in the end, but possibly he may have just not really had the pace as well. Obviously, it's all good and well saving your ERS, but I mean, yeah, if I don't know how much it would have helped, because at the same time, he really didn't have more ERS. So yeah, Gary was getting a nice dose of DRS every lap off of Arcolo, and Arcolo actually, he picked up a little bit of pace at the end. Falk, with driver of the day, Falk, the whole way through, I mean, he drove as if his life depended on it through all the chicanes and that. I mean, fair play to him. Obviously, he's been a bit questionable through the season, but yeah, gotta say fair play to him today. But yeah, I mean, Gary, at the start of the race, he didn't seem if he had it, but I think at the end of the day, I think Packer cost himself with the penalties, and yeah, Arcolo likewise.
Yeah, definitely likewise. Packer had the pace on track, but yet again a penalty denies him a victory. It's Gary then that gets that first win of the season at Monza. He'll be very happy with that. Packer on the podium once again, at least closes in at the top of the championship, but it's 7 points less than he could have hoped for in this race. Noon with another podium in 3rd. He's on a roll at the moment with podium finishes. Falk back up at the top of the field in 4th from 9th on the grid. Brilliant drive from the Haskar. Assassin yet again right up there in 5th place ahead of Matthias. Got a little bit of a lackluster race really for the Red Bull man. Had pace to be in that queue of soft runners at the front. Never really had the pace to challenge for the podium. Rigurik in 7th ahead of Arcolo, Matt Tibos. Larkin, J. Cole and Dylan are your points finishers in the end. McCrass, Zaldimer, Nolan, Ryan, Yorno, Sway and Joom are the rest of the finishers. TDB the only retiree, having spun out of Ascari fairly early on in the race. It was a fairly tame race for Monza, you've got to say. Everyone was very well behaved throughout that race. There was no real problems for drivers throughout, but we'll just reiterate it again that Packer had a great opportunity to close back in on the championship in terms of points in this race, and kind of threw it away with that final penalty. Yeah,
really unfortunate for Packer. I think if you look over the whole course of the race, I think he really did have the pace over everyone, but yeah, just one small mistake and it can just cost you the win or podium or anything. And I mean, that's how close it is in these higher divisions and higher caliber, of just how close the racing is. That 1 3-second penalty can just cost you a win. But you know, I was just working out, and yeah, Packer, with losing a win, he's now 21 points behind compared to 16. So he's really got to hope that Matthias doesn't have an amazing race, because 4 points over Packer, and Matthias has removed Packer from the championship hunt.
Yeah, it's going to be really close. It's all going to be all about Spa and what they can do at that next round. We'll hopefully get these guys into the party so we can talk to the top three in this race. So if you would like to go ahead and do that for us,
Yup.
Nathan, get the top three in so we can have a chat with them. Just before we do, though, we'll talk about driver of the day. Who was your driver of the day, in your opinion?
That's um, I would say I was gonna say Packer, but I think the penalty kind of hurt him, as I can't find Matthias. I will try and find him. Yeah, I'd say actually I would say Recurrick. I know he had the penalty, but he has had such a tough season, and I think he really has. I know obviously people say, oh, it's a wheel track or something, but I think he really has shown that he's still there in a way. And yeah, after a tough season, I think he's had a really good race. You know, obviously with the penalty, dropped him down a bit, but I mean, he was all over the back of Matthias for most of the race. So yeah, I think I'd give it to Recurrick.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. We'll hopefully get Gary and Noon into the party so that we can have a discussion with them. But we've got Packer in the party. He's joined us now. So, second place in this race, Packer. I have a feeling, though, that you're not going to be very happy with that second place finish. How are you feeling after that one?
Well, you say I shouldn't. Well, I guess I wouldn't really be happy, but to be honest, it doesn't, I guess, sound like it, but I am very happy. Obviously, last week didn't go too great, you know, being P15 and a lap down, and then, yeah, Italy, I was expecting a podium at least, and yeah, made it work. P2 by 0.3 of a second, almost P3, Jake almost got me in the end, but yeah, I can't be really mad. It was just a mistake that I shouldn't have made.
Yeah, obviously qualifying as well. Another great qualifying from you on the front row for must be fourth or fifth time this season at least. You've got to say, with a brilliant lap time in the end. Arcolo just taking that pole position. After that qualifying, did you think that you had the pace to win the race, or did you kind of think that you were going to be sitting behind Arcolo for the majority of that one?
Well, not to be mean to Arcolo, but he's known kind of as a quality merchant in the D2 community, I guess, or D2 community, if you want to call it that. But yeah, I was expecting to have pretty decent race pace throughout all 27 laps, and it worked for the most part. I saw Arcolo was struggling quite a lot on the softs, and so was I, especially right towards the end, especially in my in lap before I pit. But I wasn't, I guess, expecting. I kind of like leading, I guess. It's kind of a trend, I guess, if you've seen throughout the season.
Yeah.
For most races, if I've been at the front. But yeah, I was hoping maybe to just pass on lap 3-4 once DRS kicks in.
Yeah, I think the last thing for me as well, obviously you picked up that penalty and you mentioned it's a little bit frustrating to pick up that penalty, and it's one of the maybe second or third time this season you've lost a race victory because of a penalty at some point in the race. Did you think that even after getting that penalty there was a chance that you could get the race victory, or did you think that Gary would have had that one?
Well, I definitely thought there was a chance because at one point I got it over 3 seconds, and as soon as I got it over 3 seconds, I went in the gravel at turn 5. So, yeah, there was definitely opportunity for Gary. I saw Discord already that Gary said leave me to, and I knew I was finished after that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'll hand over to you, Nathan. Is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, just obviously Belgium and Brazil coming up. I think Belgium, you've openly said that it's probably not one of your favourite tracks. 21 points in the championship to Matthias. Do you think after Belgium you can still be within a shot of the championship, or do you think it's one race too many after today?
It's probably one race too. There's not enough races in the season, and maybe if there were tracks that I was half decent at, not Belgium and Brazil, I'd have a shot at maybe getting up towards in the championship fight for the last round. But to be honest, I didn't expect really coming into tonight to only be 21 points behind the championship leader. So yeah, a good day overall, I guess. And then championship hopes are still there, so I can be on the championship battle graphic for next week, hopefully.
Well, brilliant. Thank you so much for joining us in the party once again, Packer. Another podium this season. Then let's see if you can hopefully keep up in the championship next time out. But yeah, thank you and congratulations on second place finish. We'll hand over now to a man who I am sure is extremely ecstatic to be in this booth for only the second time this season, but for the first time this season as a race winner. Gary, how are you doing after that race victory?
Oh my god, that has to be one of the most sweatiest races I've ever done. I mean, I just have to say GG to Packer because he was so quick, and I don't know. I'm just that race was there's so much going on. I remember getting the gap down to Packer in the second, then his teammate TB just decided to be a so and so, and just like
MVP teammate.
He literally just parked it on the Ascari.
It was very sketchy, this car.
It was so sketchy. I was terrible. For a second, I was like, I'm going to go around it outside, and I was like, nah, I can't do that. But stuff like that, and that made it quite difficult. And then Packer got a pen, and then
I heard you were on 2 warnings. Is that true?
Yeah, since like lap 12.
I was on 2 since lap 9 until I got the pen. But yeah.
Yeah. So, but like our call overtook me, and I was like, you got to be kidding me, man, because I seen Packer got a pen, and straight away our call overtook me, and the gap was like 3.5 seconds. And I was like, yeah, Packer's won this, and thankfully, but like this, I don't know what the gap was. It was very small anyway. I managed to do it. I'm just so happy to be finally back in this interview on a podium. I haven't had enough this season.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a difficult season for yourself. It's been a little bit up and down, but yeah, finally getting that first win of the season for you, that's absolutely brilliant. And I'm sure, well, you've been speaking about winning at Monza for a lot, so I think it's good for you that you've proved that, so that you're not roasted by everyone after this race at least, which is great to see. Talk us through your thoughts though in those final few laps after Arcolo overtook you. Was it just a case of hoping that Arcolo caught up to Packer and you could hang on, or was it a case of you were just pushing as hard as you could, maybe hoping for Packer to make a mistake?
Oh, I was pushing. I was pushing so hard. I was so scared to get a pen, but I had to push to keep in the 3-second pen. So like every time going through Ascari, I was just expecting to get a pen, a warning even, because Arcolo's pace, like he was very slow at the start of the medium stint. The second half of the race, he was so quick. Like he was quicker than me by the end of the race, and once he overtook me, I was like, I'll stick in his DRS and use my ERS, and hopefully I can keep the gap to 3 seconds. And in the end, just about managed to do it. But it wasn't the way I wanted to do it, but a win's a win, I guess.
yeah, win's a win, I guess. And the first one of the season. Nathan, hand over to you. Anything you want to add?
Just massive congrats on the win. Obviously, back-to-back season wins now at Monza. No expectation. No expectation for the next season now at Monza. Obviously, between you and New now, it's only 16 points. I think you're on 114 after this, and he's on 130. Obviously, Belgium and Brazil, which 2 tracks are not too bad for you. Do you think that maybe you can actually get P4 in the championship? I think P5 you've probably wrapped up now with TDB and Recurric not having the best of races. But yeah, do you think P4 maybe there's a chance you can close down the 16-point gap to him?
Nah, no way. I'll try, but no. The top 4 guys have been like so consistent this season. They've been pretty much a level above everyone else, and they deserve to be in those positions. And unless something happens to Jake, I don't think I would be able to do that. He's been very quick. Even today, he was extremely quick. He could have won this race quite easily. He was very close to overtaking me. So I think a lot has to happen for me to get him. But I'll try. Never say never, but it'd be very difficult, I think, to get 4th in the stands. I'm very happy with 5th, to be honest, considering I'm washed and like I'm just terrible at the game. Apparently,
washed, can't race.
Well, they know who they are. I want the same energy from these people. Like I know who they are. I want the same energy. When I do well, I want the same energy. So yeah, I think Jake has 4th place wrapped up anyway. So yeah.
Well, brilliant stuff. Thank you for joining us once again, and congrats on your first win of the season. Maybe able to pick up another one up, and you never know. Anything could happen. Jake could have 2 horrid races for the final 2 rounds. You never know. But we'll actually now talk to Jake, who finished on the podium once again, and I think that might be your 3rd podium in a row, if I'm not mistaken. So you're now starting to take over from Matthias as the man who's in this booth more often than not. 3rd place finish for you. Did you think anything higher than 3rd was possible today?
Before the race, I would have bit my hand off for the chance to finish top 6. This is my least favourite track on the calendar, and honest to God, I thought I would be lucky to get top 10 in qualifying. I am genuinely flabbergasted that I'm here. I think more than Gary. I've just been in a state of shock the whole race. I found that far sweatier than Gary did, believe you me.
I don't know, mate. I don't know.
Expecting that at all. once I heard Packer had a penalty, I thought maybe if he makes a little mistake, I'd have half a chance at getting him, and ultimately I was only 2 tenths behind. And I did think about going for Gary because he was derating out of Parabolica basically for the last 4 or 5 laps, and I had some errors in hand. And I did have one lap, which I'm sure Gary will remember, where I got very close, and I thought about it, but I lifted off at the end because I'd rather he won and I came try and get second just on sitting in the slipstream than I overtake him and then we get second and third. So and I didn't want to risk any damage because I've had that at Australia when I spun on against Falk. I didn't want to take any risks because I knew I was in a good position.
Yeah, I think you mentioned to me actually before that not to hype you up for this race because you were expecting it to be terrible when you ended up on the podium. So I should have hyped you up before the race anyway, and it would have been fine. But talk us through kind of the early phase of the race. Obviously, we saw in the soft stint really at the start, it was kind of just a queue of cars kind of sitting in each other's DRS range and just towing each other along. Was there kind of a thought in your head that you would try and go for any moves at that point in the race, or were you just thinking about trying to make a bit of an earlier pit stop and trying to jump people that way?
I mean, I would have taken a move if there was one on, but I didn't really see an opportunity. I mean, I let Gary go when he passed me because I didn't want that fight. I knew he was quicker than me, and I didn't want to slow us down. I just wanted to sit in the DRS and hopefully he could drag me towards Arcolo and Packer. The first few laps for me were just about finding a rhythm and finding confidence because I don't enjoy the track, and I've had races in other leagues where I've just not got into a rhythm for the whole race, and I've just felt really nervous through Ascari and the second chicane. So for me, that whole stint was just get into a rhythm and feel comfortable with the track because I've only done 2 quali sessions practice. I'd done about 4 racing laps practice for this, so I was again just not taking risks and trying to find my rhythm, find my comfort zone.
Fair enough. I'll hand over to you, Nathan, for any final thoughts for Jake.
Yeah, just going off what you said, I think occasionally we were like, oh, Noon can actually win this if he just goes for a move on Gary, and I think, yeah, at one point we did think you were going to go for a move, but obviously, like you said, it was probably better that one of you won and then one of you came second or third. I think we actually thought that you both could have got Packer if Packer had made even more of a mistake, but yeah, just looking at the final 2 races, obviously there's a slim chance you can still get P3 over Packer. I think you've
There's a chance I can get the title. I'm 44 points behind Matt. I did the math.
Oh, you still okay? Well, do you think you can still get the title?
No, I'm not racing Brazil.
I know you've said
mathematically.
Obviously Brazil, you've said isn't the strongest track, if not is one of the tracks you don't really like on the game, and obviously we got Belgium as well, which I think you've always gone quite well around. What are you really looking for out of the final 2 races? Maybe a win at Belgium, or just a couple of podiums, or what are you really expecting?
Very optimistic of you to think I can win at Belgium. I'm hopeful I can get another podium because I've got a little run going now of 3 podiums in a row, 4 top 4s in a row. So I mean, my aim would be fight for another podium. If I get it, odds are I'm not going to be racing Brazil, unfortunately. So yeah, my fight is staying 4th, which I think I've got because you said Gary's on 114 points, but he's not. He's on 89.
Okay.
So I'm 41 points ahead of Gary. So if I get like top 6, that's wait, no, if I just match him or don't let him outscore me by 16, 17 points, I've got 4th, I think. So that's
is
my
Dan?
Belgium.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't realise Dan had already started updating on standings. That's my bad.
A little bit
Good one,
preemptive.
Nathan.
That makes sense. That's excessive.
Well, brilliant. Thank you for joining us in the party once again, Noon, and hopefully we'll see maybe all 3 of you, some of you 3 back in the party this time next week at Spa.
Not me.
Not me. Never.
I'm done
no.
for the season.
Well, Noon, it's up to you then. You're going to have to be the one that comes into the party this time next week. But thank you guys for joining us, and thank you obviously everyone watching the stream with us today as well. It's been another brilliant race for D2. We've got 2 rounds left of the championship. The title is still wide open at the moment. Matthias and Lark is still leading the way. Pack is still right in the fight as well. Noon mathematically in it, but maybe not quite theoretically
In
going to
it.
take the yeah, not theoretically in it, but anywho, anything can happen. Tune in obviously to the League of Europe YouTube channel this time next week at 6:40 for divisions 1, 3 and 4, and divisions 2 and 5 at 8:10 p.m. Formula 2 also runs, I believe, on a Monday if I'm not mistaken, so tune into those as well. So they're sure to be great races. But for myself and Nathan, it's thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you in a week's time. Goodbye.